got called to this roof to see this soft spot. This is where the soft spot was. I pulled back the plywood and found a lot of rotted plywood framing and wet insulation. And I wasn't sure how it was getting wet because the roof seemed to be in good shape. There wasn't anything that jumped out to me that was an issue, and there were many other roofers were called to this roof, and nobody could find the issue. And so I just decided to tear this up, and as I tore, I just found more wet wood and rotted wood. But it was in the middle of this, roof here. You see the nail heads weren't rusted. The tops of the nail heads weren't rusted for the roofing nails, but the whole bottom shank was. And you can see the rusty framing nails there. So anything that plywood was touching was wet. And so I pulled it back as far as I needed to go to replace the rotted wood and the wet wood. I still didn't understand what was happening though, because it didn't seem to be coming from the roof. So I kept digging. Noticed some strange things. This is some wet insulation, but as I pull it back, anything that insulation touched was wet. And it was right up against the bottom of the roof deck, right up against the top of the ceiling there, because this wood that you see is actually the ceiling inside the house. There was no air space, and you see how the mold just grew there. But this part of the deck was dry, so that's why I didn't understand it. It was very confusing what was going on, and we just had to keep digging until we found the answer. But what I discovered was the insulation was not right. For the cathedral ceiling, you really got to have a gap for that air to flow, and any moisture that's in that room is going to want to exit the roof. If it's blocked by insulation, it's going to condensate, and it's going to do what it did here. This is a condensation issue, actually. There's nowhere for the moisture to go, and you can see where they did insulate properly, it's dry. Where the insulation, see how there's nothing there where there was a gap. A small little gap for the air to flow caused it to be perfectly fine. Go to the other side, it's full of mold and mildew and rotted wood. So when you're insulating, especially a cathedral ceiling, in this instance, it's a cedar ceiling and not drywall, so you're not even painting it. You have no seal there. That air's just going to go up through. So we pulled up the shingles, and look at these nails are perfectly fine. The heads of the nails are in good shape. The tar paper is wet. And I just, like I said, noticed that didn't look right. And it did not indicate a roof leak, which every other roofer said there was a roof leak. That's an indication right there that there's a moisture coming from the inside. So this is what it looks like after we put a hip vent in next to the ridge vent. Just let that air escape and find a way to get out of the house.